All right, so we are Pop Culture Ponderers, and we are here with another question this week. I'm Lauren,
I'm Joe.
and we had a big ponder this week. I had a question that's kind of been mulling around in my head for a little while. So I've been in the process of kind of watching The Last of Us as it's been coming out, and then I just read the most recent Hunger Games book because I'm a huge fan of the Hunger Games, and that got me thinking about a very specific ponder. I was thinking about end of the world scenarios and which ones we think we could survive in and which ones we know that we are completely doomed in. So, my question for this week was if it's the end of the world of as we know it and we feel fine, what world are we in? How are we making it through? And what completely ruins us in some other world? Um so it's kind of a little open-ended this week, but I'm curious to see where you go with this. I want to know what your answers are.
All right, this one threw me off. Like I was like, oh, I could totally make it through a bunch of these, and then I'm thinking about it, and the more realistic I got with it, I was like, I'm screwed.
That's what gets me.
But I had a couple that I think, well, one that I could definitely get through. Possum.
You
I'm
came
not
in
gonna
so
say
confident. I was
yeah,
so excited.
but I think I'm gonna make it pretty far in the one. I just might get sloppy in the end.
Okay. I'll be curious to see. So, like, that's what always happens to me is like I'm watching these things and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so ridiculous. Why is so and so doing this? And then I'm like, oh, you know who you really are in real life, right? Like you would be that person making that mistake. So, there was a couple of worlds that I was thinking about. So, like, I went through like a bunch of different like zombie universes. I thought about things like The Walking Dead, 28 Days Later, which is kind of an infected story, which I would put Last of Us and 28 Days Later in that category of infected, but they're essentially zombie stories. um Day of the Dead, we have World War Z, and then I kind of expanded out into other things too, things like Terminator, the Mad Max universe, something like Hunger Games, Planet of the Apes, which is one that I've always loved. So as you were looking at this, what kind of worlds did you consider? What were you thinking about?
So ones that I considered was World War Z, even though they're ridiculously fast,
A huge concern.
and I know the movie was like at the end they found out that if you were terminally sick or
Mhm.
like I was like maybe I could survive being a type 2 diabetic. They might not come for me,
I know World War Z helps me at this point.
but I don't think that's going to work. But then I thought, all right, maybe day after tomorrow. Like I'm crafty. I
Nice.
kind of think of different ways of I mean, I garden, I do all sorts of stuff. So like I feel like I could make it through that maybe,
You,
but I
you
think I'll probably freeze.
you do have a lot of handy skills. That's definitely something to consider.
And then Planet of the Apes, I love animals, so maybe I could become friends with them and turn some of the apes into allies. I don't know,
Okay.
but I don't think I'd do well in that. But
Good choices,
those
good
were
choices.
where my ideas went. I landed on something totally different.
So I played hard with the idea of the Walking Dead universe. I like something about that one. I like the speed of my zombies, and that's a key factor for me in my survivability in a universe. So I played hard with the idea of the Walking Dead. I also came back to Planet of the Apes. Um, I will tell you, I have a deep, like a bone deep fear of chimpanzees, which is going to be a factor, but I love
Absolutely.
gorillas. So maybe that saves me. Also, I think that there's a the almost human intelligence, but maybe more compassion that might save me in that universe. I thought about something like Mad Max just for my showmanship. I might be able to show up on like a vehicle with like a huge outfit and just play like rock guitar and carry me through. I don't have the musical ability right now, but that might do it. Um, so there was a couple different things that I considered too, and some of those universes that I didn't even think about. All right, so if we're looking at the different universes, which one do you think is your strongest contender, and what skills do you have that help you in your universe? What are you bringing to the apocalypse that gets
Okay.
you through?
So I picked Zombieland.
An excellent choice.
And yes,
An
their zombies
excellent
are
choice.
quick and whatnot.
Yes. Okay, we're going to come back to
But
that.
I'm pretty handy, like I said before. I could be crafty. Um, some knowledge of mechanics, so like it would get me through
Mhm.
like fixing stuff to where I could take it.
Right?
Um, fishing, hunting, I do all these things. So with like hunting, I could kind of like hide and sneak
Yeah.
a little bit.
You have a level of real life skill that is commendable in any zombie universe. Like that helps you no matter where I put you. Again, just like your gardening knowledge, your building knowledge, the hunting, the fishing, like all of those things, when I compile your real life skills, that makes you a serious contender in any zombie universe. That's very valuable. No question, no question. Those are the things that like I would instantly want to ally myself with you, besides the fact that I enjoy you as a human being. That would be one of my top, like if I'm looking at the things that you do with your time as it is right now, no question I want you on my
Yeah.
team.
So that's where my head went with that.
Okay, but okay, so we're looking at the zombie land zombies, and you mentioned it, they run.
Yeah.
This is a serious concern. What are we doing about the running zombies?
See, this is where my head went automatically. Like from the movie, I'm gonna ally myself
Okay.
with Bill Murray.
So
The
that's
fact that
your
he
first choice of
that's my
ally.
first choice.
Excellent.
Because we're gonna walk around playing golf, doing whatever, but dressed as zombies,
Russian zombies.
pretending to be dead.
You circumvented my entire concern. I'm trying to figure out how I get my way to Woody Harrelson and how I'm convincing him that Tallahassee, like, that they're gonna keep me in the Humvee, that I am part of the team. And you've gone around the entire issue and just went, no, I need a Hollywood mansion and just to move slow with Bill Murray.
So that was like Bill Murray was like my go-to.
Hmm.
But the other thing I was thinking was, now I would try to be somewhere on a coast,
Okay. Yes.
because then I would try to like find a basically like not maybe a yacht or something to
And
where
we
I could have
go
it offshore
offshore.
and then just have to come in for supplies dressed as a zombie and walk around.
Right. Okay. So I do like any universe where we're able to convince the zombies that we're part of their horde. That is key. So that's one of the things that brings me to The Walking Dead. That's one of the reasons. So The Walking Dead is one of my strongest choices. I like that our zombies walk, and we see in the early seasons. So you have the ability. A little less it's a little less tasteful than the Bill Murray solution. You do have to essentially cover yourself in zombie guts, but you can, if you maintain a slow walking pace and are covered in the smell of other zombies, you can trick the Walking Dead zombies into thinking that you're one of them. You have the ability to move through their herds. We see that in other characters too, even in like the Whispers. Like that's one of the cults that arises in Walking Dead. So that's a big factor for me. If I can hide myself in and amongst the zombies, that is key. I didn't even consider the fact that I could be doing that with makeup as opposed to innards. So I might have misjudged my strategy on that, but that is a big factor.
Yeah.
Now, I don't love the running. I don't love any zombie that can run at me. Okay. So, for example, 20 days later, World War Z, Last of Us, all of those, I'm pretty sure I'm out fairly quickly just because of the run factor. Now, two of these universes, both 28 Days Later and World War Z, you have a crazy fast turn rate.
Yeah.
Like it's the kind of thing that you get bit and within seconds that person is out and they're down. I think that if I'm living in that kind of universe, I probably have like a 15-minute zombie apocalypse time limit. I don't think I make it more than 15, 20 minutes before somebody takes me right out. But
That's basically where I'm at. Like
yes.
I think I could do this? Possibly, but knowing me, and I tend to get sloppy at times and kind of get complacent, and I might skip a major factor, and there I go.
I was going to say, so when you're looking at Zombieland too, you have a series of rules. There's strict guidelines to follow. We don't, as the viewer, necessarily get all of them written out, but I do like that you have specific guidelines to follow that will help aid in your survival.
Yeah.
That's key. Um, so World War Z helps for me because we have the book too. So I'm a big book person. And that's a book that I absolutely loved. Within the book, there's a special caveat where we see that in cold weather, the zombies are specifically affected. That's one of the things that pulls World War Z back for me is the fact that if you're in a cold enough climate during the winter months, that essentially makes them dormant. They shut down in the snow. For example, you all the way up into like Canada and Alaska, there are different people that are able to go out in the winter and bring down essentially fields of them because they become completely still and stationary. They're going to thaw out in the spring, but that buys me some time. So just for that, the fact that the universe conditions affect the zombies, that keeps World War Z in my top contenders as one that I might be able to. I also like the fact that health is a contingent there. So theoretically, based on a health contingent, I'm going to be able to survive within the universe for a little bit if I'm not of perfect health or condition, which for me is definitely going to apply to some degree or another. That's always going to skate me through. So I don't mind that. In terms of characters that I'm allying myself with, though, in terms of World War Z, there's nobody specific that I find. In the movie, you've got Jerry for sure, which I like him as an ally, despite the fact that he goes chopping off that one girl's arm. It is to save her life. It's very important. And he is the man with the plan. So if I'm looking at the movie, I think that he's one of my top choices. But in terms of the book, I lose him as an ally because we kind of widen our view. And there's a bunch of different people and places that I could be based in. So that makes me a little bit nervous. The Walking Dead, though, I don't know if there's anybody that I trust as much as I trust Rick. There's something about him from the very beginning. You add him and Daryl together. As the story progresses, they kind of like branch off and go their different ways. But if I'm looking at like an initial group of survivors, they're one of my favorites. They have amazing skills. In terms of what I think I bring to them, it's not quite as practical as what you have, but I do I don't know. I've got maybe a couple things that I could work with. Oof. I don't know.
This was a tough one. There's a lot of different, and depending on, like, we went with zombies obviously, but
Hmm.
even with like Planet of the Apes or anything like that,
Yes.
there's a lot of different variables that I don't think I'd make it through.
One of the things that I found exactly is like I rely on the same skill in pretty much any universe. I'm going to come back to my intelligence and like my ability to just to talk to people and to make friends. Like that's not necessarily like a universe skill, but I in terms of the way that I navigate through my life, I would like to think that I have some minimal ability if I'm in anything from a zombie universe to something like Mad Max or Planet of the Apes, that I might be able to ally myself with one or two, that I can find my person in a room and kind of talk them in. So if I can find the right ape, if I can find the right person, like when I'm watching even something like The Day After Tomorrow, I'm looking at the way that they're talking to the group in the library and the group that goes out to forage. I think that I can work with enough personalities and have enough logic and persuasiveness in the way that I talk to people that I might be able to keep the right people around and to keep myself on the right side of the right people. That's one of my biggest zombie skills. I don't have the practical things like you do. I mean, I can sew and cook, but past that, I'm kind of out.
That that is important though. You got to eat.
Yeah, exactly. And someday in the future, we're going to need to make new clothes. Like that's going to be,
Yeah,
and I mean, maybe I could do a suture. We'd see. We'd
that
see.
would
We'd
be
see.
important.
Yeah, exactly. I like my books. So if you give me enough like medical text or like farming text or something like engineering, I could probably build you a generator or at least work you through why yours isn't working. Maybe I need you to do the building and I can just do the schematics.
See, that's important.
Yeah. So maybe it's that we're a team in the zombie apocalypse. That could be it. All right, so you've allied yourself with Bill Murray. I love that as a freaking choice. That's fantastic. I'm going to put myself in the Walking Dead universe. Mm. And I'm putting myself firmly. You know what? I'm going to go with Daryl. I'm going to go with Daryl over Rick because Daryl has a deep loyalty to him. I'm going to I'm going to pull myself out of Mad Max because frankly, I don't know who I'm trusting in there. Um and I look at something like The Hunger Games, I Divergent too, and they make me real nervous because one, I'm at an age where I could technically be out of the danger zone now, but had I been a teenager going through them, I don't think I'm surviving those
No,
worlds.
I
I don't
mean,
think that.
I know I got this, like, some skills that would help me in the Hunger Games, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think I have the heart to take another human's life. That's not in
Right?
me.
That's not in me.
No.
You do. Okay, so I think that realistically, like on your structure building skills, how high would you rate yourself? Do you think that you're building a shelter?
Yeah, I could definitely build a shelter.
Right. And you could definitely start a fire too.
Yeah, that I've done.
No, I do think that that's one. I mean, I've done that too. I could start a fire. I don't know about a structure for myself. The fact that you can hunt, huge for you. That's going to carry you in any universe. What's your preferred weapon in terms of hunting?
Well, usually it's a rifle if I'm out hunting, but
Okay.
I do have skills in shooting a bow, and so I could do more than just firearms.
I
So
was going to say that's going to depend on our universe too, because some of them I really like whenever we have a universe that really takes into account like real world factors. So, for example, scarcity of bullets or ammunition. We see that come up in a couple of the ones that we're talking about. But one of the things that I also liked is that they talked about in The Last of Us the way that gas deteriorates over time. So it's one of those things like that's not an unlimited resource. It's
no,
not enough that you can always find a car to siphon gas out of. It's that over time, that gas does less and less and less. You can pull it out, but it's not carrying you as far.
no.
Eventually, that fuel source is going to completely deplete. So I like that as an idea. The fact that you can shoot is helpful, but the bow and arrow might be the thing that really carries you over the line,
Well, that would be constantly being able to reuse arrows versus
right?
I just shot a bullet, now it's gone. Now I got to look for more ammunition.
And not just being able to reuse the arrows, but you have the woodworking skills to theoretically be able to manufacture your own weapons
That's
if
true.
needed. So the only experience that I have is like in terms of something like snaring or trapping, I do have a little bit, like I've done a little bit of like tracking or following animals, not enough to be able to do it in the wild on my own, but enough theoretically to start to be able to recognize what I was looking for. And again, if you gave me enough book time, I'm able to get there. But depending on some of these apocalypses, depending on where we start, I don't have enough time to be checking out books. There's no reading.
No,
All right. So, in terms of that, how long do you realistically think you make it in your chosen world?
I don't know. That see, that's a tough question because like, how complacent do I get and how fast? Because if I stick to it long enough, maybe a couple of years.
Okay, okay. So that tends to be where I tap myself out too. If I manage to make it through the first 6 weeks of an apocalypse, which to me are the most dangerous point, anytime you're watching the entire system collapse in any of our worlds, even something like Terminator, as you're looking at like the rise of the machines, or I thought about something like the Matrix too, as we were seeing this shift where like the machines begin to come up against us. If you can manage to make it through that first initial period, there's always going to be some kind of like resettling. To some degree, you're going to figure out where your power centers are. So your hordes of zombies are going to start to form up. You're going to figure out their patterns. You're going to figure out where your machines are. Your apes have to build their own society. Whatever it is, to some degree, it's got to settle. And that gives you a chance to regroup. So if you manage to make it through that first point, I do think that complacency is going to be an issue for me too.
Yeah, I'm gonna get sloppy and I'm gonna do something out of step and
Right?
screw myself up.
My ADHD is not going to allow me to remain constantly vigilant. I don't have that in me. I can't be on patrols all the time or monitoring gates. And heaven help you if you send me out on patrols where I'm like guarding the perimeters. No, I'm tired. I've gotten bored on scouting duty. I'm just looking at like a squirrel in the tree and something eats me. That's going to happen every time. That's
There,
going to happen every
there's a
time.
pretty good chance I'm in the same boat.
Fair enough. But if you have something like the zombie land world, so much of our current system like remains in place. Like I do think that you have to stay up on your makeup techniques and stuff like that, but the fact that you can infiltrate among the zombies keeps it fairly easy. Something like 28 days later or The Last of Us, there's never a chance for you to relax into that population. They will always be aware of you. Anytime you're making sound, anytime you're moving too fast, something is going to clock you. World War Z, it's the same way to me to some degree. Although there within the books we have like the temperature element that gives you part of the year where you don't have to be constantly vigilant,
Yeah,
especially if we go up north. Like where we're located, we'd be far enough that I think the cold is going to give us a little bit of a break. If you're in Florida, good
yeah.
luck, my friends.
There's no chance of them cooling down, slowing down.
Yeah, exactly. Although depending on your zombie, you might have a faster deterioration rate because of the heat and the moisture. So that's one of those things too. A zombie world, I feel like gives me more time to survive just because I think any dead thing is going to continue to deteriorate. 28 days later makes that very, very clear that the body starts to slow down. Something like The Walking Dead does too, although it takes years and years and years. Like it's way slower than a normal decomposition rate. World War Z does the same thing. And in the book, he kind of breaks down the science behind what's happening with that human body and why it's deteriorating and breaking down in the way that it does. But anything like that kind of helps. A zombie world, the fact that eventually I think the human beings wear out gives me time. Something where a new society has risen up, if I'm looking at Planet of the Apes, if I'm looking at Mad Max, and heaven help me, if I'm looking at Terminator or Matrix where things are run by machines.
Yeah,
I really don't know if there is any point after that 6 weeks where I am safe enough and I actually make it. I think that they have a solid enough chance to always be aware and vigilant. I don't even know if I make it to that 2 year point. They might bring me down before that.
That's that's where I was thinking with this. Because I mean, like you said, the initial 6 weeks or whatever it ends up being,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of variables that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you try do you try and bring people from your current life with you? And who are we trying to save and how much does that affect how long we survive? This has occurred to me in the moment. I'm thinking about it. I'm going, cool. You're right. You have all of these skills. What I want to do is ally myself with you. But now I've slowed you down significantly. Okay. All of your hunting ability is impacted by my want to be with you. So who are you trying to save with you? And how does that impact your survival rate?
see, that's I don't know this the way I am. I'm not gonna leave anybody behind.
Oh, of
Just
course not. You're so good.
that's just the
I'm
way I am.
not.
But I don't know. I always thought about it like if I was out with my sister and like her
Hmm.
kids and stuff, I'm gonna jump on the
Right.
grenade and take one for the team just to save them. But
I gotta say, there's no question for me. So this is gonna be not necessarily, I mean, it falls within the end of the world as we know it, but I didn't even throw it on my list because I can tell you from the beginning, there's no way I survive. It's Train to Busan. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
no,
Zombie movie made it fantastic, absolutely amazing. Anyone that's listening, if you get a chance, watch Train to Busan. It takes zombies in a very emotional way. But again, we have our runners. It's like a severe zombie apocalypse, but it's very much so an emotional story where we're seeing the goodness of the few and what we decide to do with our time. There's no question for me that one of the things that gets you killed the fastest is how much you have to save everyone else. You are undoubtedly going to be putting yourself on the line for the people that you love and trying to help them as much. I want to say I would do the same. I might panic. I don't know. But that's one of the reasons that I want to ally myself with you is because I know that there's no question you would be trying to get a huge group of people with you. I could see you really kind of like rising up in that universe and having like a little following of people behind you as you're blazing a trail forward into safety.
that's what I would try to do. But I don't know if it'd work out for me in the long run.
I don't know. You could be the starters of one of our communities. That would be Jackson Hole in Last of Us. I could see you like forming up a little see, that's once we get to that point too. Once we've formed like a survivors colony. I don't necessarily think I can get you there the way that you could, but once we have that, I can reinstitute law and order. I have an understanding of societal formation and the needs of the many as opposed to the needs of few, and the way that really like human nature works into some base way that I think I could be really fundamental in the forming of a new society. I can help prolong what you've got. I don't know if I can get you there, but once we're looking at resource management and um, energy and how we're going to handle our medical and what do we do in terms of child rearing and how do we, like, in terms of how you rebuild a society, I feel like I have more skills that come into play.
Well, that would be important.
Right? Exactly. It's like a whole team effort there. That's for sure. That's for sure. Um, Okay, cool. So, your final outcome. You think you've made it a couple years. What do you think actually happens to you? Where do you end up?
Probably as a zombie somewhere.
Probably, yeah.
No longer dressed as a zombie, but or the same way Bill Murray went, where a normal human thinks you're a
Shy.
zombie and shot me. That
That would be a big factor.
that would be the other way I would go because that's what I was thinking was maybe I go the way of Bill Murray and get shot by the people in my mansion.
Right, exactly. You have an entire cult of quasi-zombie people and you get taken out by somebody that doesn't know that you're quasi-zombie people.
Yeah.
I could see that happening for sure. That for me was always the tragic moment of that movie where I was just like, oh, yeah, that's what would have happened to me. I wouldn't have told anybody. I would have been playing a practical joke, just sneaking up on people as zombies, and they would not have understood that that was just for me. All right. So in terms of my universe, The Walking Dead, I think again, I think I can make it if I pick the right allies. I think I could potentially make it a couple years, but yeah, no more than that. And frankly, for me, it's gonna be the ADHD. I'm gonna get lazy. I'm gonna get distracted. We're gonna get just safe enough that I stop paying attention all the time. Like my brain in a crisis point, I am on. I am with you. I can get you out of the flooded city. I can handle something in a moment. If you're, again, we're in World War Z and you just got bit, I'm your arm chopper offer, okay? I'm all instinct. But then the minute things calm down, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Somebody has to go in the farming rotation. I'm like, oh God, I'm just picking strawberries. And a zombie sneaks up on me through the fence and I get eaten every time. That's what's gonna happen. I know myself. There's no way. I think I think if I look at some of the other universes though, if I switch myself out of just the purely zombie mindset, somewhere like Planet of the Apes, I might be able to play a long game there. I might be. And now this is going to depend too on our Planet of the Apes universe, because in some of them we have human intelligence that's severely impacted by the rise of the virus that allows the apes to kind of take over. And in some of them, that's not the same factor. But I think that I could probably play like along with the system well enough to make it through to closer to Endgame. Planet of the Apes is one of the only ones where that works. I could potentially do it in something like Mad Max 2 again. I feel like I have a flair for the dramatic that would carry me there, but once you introduce something like Terminator, the robots are not, they're not going
No,
to buy into my personality.
no.
I don't have enough. No, they're not going to do that. But I do think that if we kind of leave that zombie realm, there is something about those universes where Planet of the Apes and something like that, Mad Max, where even even to some degree within like the Hunger Games universe, if you can get me if you can get me through to a certain point, I think that there is enough personality to carry through. I worry about you in those universes because of your essential goodness.
Yeah, no, I'm screwed.
I know you become PETA for me in the Hunger Games, and I'm just like, oh no, he's gonna get killed. He's too good to take a human life, and I'm over here scheming with berries or whatever. But I don't know. I think that that essential goodness might also save you for a little bit. I think that again, in something like Planet of the Apes, you might have a strong gamble.
I like I said, I would try to ally myself with some of the apes maybe, and
Yeah, right.
maybe I don't know, maybe be a pet. Who knows?
Exactly. Like that's fine. You can just like feed me like little chips in the corner and I can perform like tricks for a little while. Like that's fine if that's how
Yeah.
I'm gonna like long-term survive in the universe. And we do see that mentality in some of the apes, like they have that kind of compassion. I do think that's a universe that you could do. And again, like that's one where we as humans have the best bet. Because if you're looking at a species that has our intelligence but doesn't operate of our fundamental systems, we might still be able to pull it together there for a little bit. I think Planet of the Apes is also a solid bet.
Yeah, because then the other thing I was thinking was like in like the Planet of the Ape movies, if I was to like just live off way outside of their cities and
Yes.
kind of just live off into the woods, I think I could do it, no problem.
Right? There is like a human, like to some degree, you could definitely set up a new human society. And exactly, this isn't a population that's constantly expanding or looking for new borders. They have the same kind of bounds or restrictions in terms of societal function like we see right now. And it's not like a zombie horde that's constantly like roving and looking for a new population or something to eat, or something like the robots in Terminator or the Matrix, which are seeking the maximum resource allocation. Because of something like Planet of the Apes, they have the same limitation in population density that we do, and they also have the same fundamental needs as us. They're looking for enough resource to keep themselves alive, but to expand more resource than that to gain it isn't fundamentally viable. I think that there's a balance to that universe. Maybe that's the best place that any human has the best chance to survive is Planet of the Apes. That
Yeah,
might be our best bet all around.
probably.
Although I gotta say, I have a bone deep fear of chimpanzees. That's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, well that would be a problem because that's one of the main.
The majority
Yeah,
of the apes are chimp
yeah.
based. I love myself some gorillas, but a chimp scares me, man. I don't
Well,
know.
either way, I'm not taking out a chimp or definitely not a gorilla hand to hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no way. The number of people that I think it would, I mean, if we're taking down a gorilla, I want to be clear. And we're talking a silverback in full rampage with human intelligence and the ability to ability to articulate, like to use weapons and to articulate and fight like a human being can, as we see within the Planet of the Apes universe. I'm thinking that that's like a 20-person job.
Yeah,
Okay?
and that's with tools and other ways of doing it. You're
Exactly.
talking a creature that has human intelligence as a gorilla.
The raw strength.
Yeah, that's the damage you could do as a human with that ability of a gorilla would be insane.
Right? Can you imagine just punching a gorilla in the face? Like, no, that does nothing. Um,
You're basically a super soldier from
it is,
Marvel,
right?
is basically what you become.
Do you want to fight Captain America? No, you don't. It's the
No.
same as a gorilla. Um, and I do within the Planet of the Apes universe because we see them using tools. So it's one of those things like again, guns and stuff like that deteriorate to a certain point, and we do see a switch in warfare and in weaponry. We see spears, we see bows and arrows, and they are coming on mounted horseback. That's also a significant problem.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of personality, just because you have the ability to potentially work with your group of captors the best, I don't know. I'm going to keep them in the running. I'm going to keep them in the running as a potential universe. I don't want to have to fight hand to hand with anybody there, though.
No.
Maybe a lemur. Ugh, as long as they don't come for my face.
I don't know. They're still ridiculously strong.
Right? And so fast and like wily at that point. I don't know.
And you might
Really?
not even see them coming, swinging from the trees and whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. These damn dirty apes, you just can't trust them at
Damn
all.
dirty apes.
Okay, so I do want to hear what is the universe that you think you do the worst in?
Oh, I'm gone in minutes with AI. Any of these
Any of
Matrix, and I don't think I do well at all.
any robot universe. I know.
Just thinking the technology that we have today, and now you're gonna put it in AI's like control, you're
Yes.
screwed. Considering we have a heat signature, they could use heat vision to find us. I can't hide in the woods.
Oh, right, exactly. That's done. And all we have is woods.
Like I'd basically have to, I don't know, like you'd have to like somehow change your core temperature to blend in with everything.
Right? This isn't
It's
viable.
damn near impossible.
Much like the predator's vision. Yeah, so AI in the computers is one of my biggest concerns too. Because if I look at almost any other population to some degree, if you're starting with a human form, i.e., a zombie, then I have some human limitations no matter what. I'm assuming that your vision, for example, hasn't increased to a wild degree, or hearing hasn't increased to a wild degree. Muscular strength hasn't increased to a wild degree. There might be slight variations in the condition that make it harder for me to escape, but to some degree, I can use evasive tactics. I can use things like the wood. But the minute you bring computer intelligence into it, especially with the way that the net is spread right now,
Yeah.
yeah, the Terminator gets me every time, man. Or the Matrix, I end up in a little pod. The machines are going to eat me. There's
Oh,
no
absolutely.
way.
Plus, you managed to take out one. Guarantee they already sent out a signal to get more there, and you're screwed.
Exactly. I've already given up my location. Like they already have the ability to track me just based on whatever it is I'm doing at any given moment. And frankly, I don't know how to evade any of these things now without using some form of technology to do it. Like I'm going to come up to a certain issue where I'm like, let me just Google, let me just find the answer real quick on the internet or something like that. That's going to be a problem.
That
I
is a problem.
can I can use real books if we can get there, but I feel like so much of the basis of knowledge that we're trusting, or like even things like my GPS, like my first instinct, frankly, I don't know where the closest map is. To me, at any given point, I don't have one in my car anymore. I don't have
No.
one at home. I don't know how to find the nearest roadways. So yeah, I think computer or AI is going to be my biggest fear in the apocalypse. Excellent point.
Yeah, no, there's too many variables with AI that you just can't control.
Right? There's
And
no coming back from
and
that.
the fact that we've gotten to that point as a society where you rely on technology so much and so heavily
For
that
everything.
it's going to be damn near impossible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point.
And
There's
and how up to date are these maps that you would find in a library or whatever else?
because it's been years,
Yeah, it's been years since they've gotten used and whatnot, and
right? Like it's one of those things. I remember being a little kid and my parents always having a map in the car. You could pull one out of the glove box and figure out where you were. And then somewhere in my lifetime that changed. And now exactly I look at most of the things on my list and I go, oh, cool, that doesn't factor anymore. Maybe something like the Hunger Games, where essentially we rose to a certain point and then have completely deteriorated. They might have maps in that kind of universe. But in terms of what I'm trying to survive against, that's still not helping me. I have to make it out of arena. I don't have those kinds of
yeah,
skills. That's not carrying me. Yeah. Just basic navigation going to be a huge factor in survivability.
yeah. But AI would definitely be my
Hmm.
worst place to try to survive.
Unquestionably the worst of the universes. Nice. All right. What about you? Do you have any other questions? Anything else that you want to take me through in this universe?
In these, I mean, we've gone over all the stuff that I had in my notes on.
Right? Those are my big ponders too. I really wanted to know, like, as I've been watching these things and reading these things, I keep wondering about my survivability and what I would do. And I was really curious to see what your thoughts would be. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And you brought a whole perspective that I did not think. There was definitely concerns that I now need to incorporate into my future survival strategies, which I did not have.
Yeah.
Important notes, important notes. All right, fantastic. So, anyone at home, let us know, what universe do you think that you would survive in? What's your apocalypse? What is your strategy? How do you make it through? What gets you? What completely throws you off? Let us know. What are your thoughts? Because I'm always wondering, like, maybe you have a strategy that I can use someday. Maybe you've got the information that I don't have. Give me an idea, give us an idea
Yeah.
of how you make it through.
And let us know if there's something that we touched on that we could have like embellished a little bit more and like taken in a different direction that would have helped us that we didn't think of. We'd like to know.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got something that makes you ponder off of ours, if you've got a question to throw at us, we always want to hear it. All right. Well, I'm Lauren,
I'm Joe.
and we hope that you have a fantastic week. We will talk to you guys again soon. Super excited to see what comes up next. All right. Survive.